Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, I do videos on creepy and disturbing things. So if that's also your thing, consider subscribing. So this video is actually a collab with a channel called the Internet Investigator, and she is a really awesome YouTuber. She's already taking off, and her videos are super interesting and really well researched, as well as just her general demeanor is just really calming to watch. So I definitely recommend you check out her channel. I will have her channel as well as her part of this video linked below in the description as well as the pinned comment. So in this video, it's going to be my first conspiracy theory, and then the second one is actually going to be one of her conspiracy theories, and then the third one will be back to me, and it'll be vice versa for her video. So with that all being said, let's get started. So back in the 1950s, something really horrific was happening right under our noses. It was so unbelievable that it did sound like just a conspiracy theory. However, this insane conspiracy theory turned out to be true. It was called Project Sunshine. The federal government was stealing parts of bodies, especially from children and even infants, for testing. And when I say stealing, I mean stealing. They took these parts from these bodies without asking for permission, without getting permission, and the family, the victims, the loved ones had no idea. So here's what happened. The United States federal government created this worldwide network to collect body parts of cadavers. They wanted to study how and if a radioactive substance called strontium-90 was absorbed by the human body due to nuclear testing that was being done at the time. From Europe to Australia, around 1,500 bodies, a lot of them being infants, were shipped to the United States in order to carry out these tests. One woman who tragically had a stillborn baby was not allowed to see her baby or dress her baby for the funeral. That was because the government didn't want her to find out that they took her baby's legs for this testing of radiation. So this shows that they absolutely knew what they were doing was wrong. In fact, the Atomic Energy Commission documents showed that members of this project absolutely knew that it was wrong, both legally and ethically. Dr. Willard Libby, a University of Chicago researcher who was also a commission member, stated that they really needed the bones of young children in order to get enough information about the effects of nuclear testing. In the transcript, she's quoted as saying the following: "I don't know how to get them, but I do say that it is a matter of prime importance to get them, and particularly in the young age group." So human samples are of prime importance, and if anybody knows how to do a good job of body snatching, they will really be serving their country. So yeah, they 100% knew what they were doing, and they knew that it was basically despicable. Of course, donating your body to science after dying is a very common thing to do, and even a very respectable thing to do. But there's just something so dark about not only using children and baby cadavers, but taking only parts of them, as if they're no different than a car being stripped for parts, and for what they were being used for nuclear testing. It's just so sinister and dark.
So my theory for this video is that free, or at least very low cost, renewable energy exists, but that the technology is being suppressed either by the government or by energy companies or by special interest groups affiliated with fossil fuels. Of course, we do currently use some forms of renewable energy, but these often don't come cheap, and they're unappealing for other reasons. It can cost thousands of pounds to install solar panels, and some people just really don't like how they look. Newer ones have been created that are less noticeable and blend in with the roof, but these are even more expensive. Solar panels and other forms of renewable energy can pay themselves off over a number of years, but many people just wouldn't be able to afford the upfront cost to have them installed in the first place. So for that reason or another, only a small proportion of houses run on partly renewable energy. So I don't think I need to explain the huge benefits that free or low-cost renewable energy would have, not only for the people, but for the environment as well. But is there any evidence that such technology exists? There have actually been a few inventors in the past that claim to have found a way to produce free or low-cost energy. One notable example is Nikola Tesla, an inventor who was best known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current electricity supply system. In the 1980s, he began working on a generator that he claimed did not consume any fuel, so would basically provide unlimited free energy. By the early 1930s, he claimed he had invented a machine to harness the power of cosmic rays. Solar power is in a way harnessing the power of cosmic rays, but in basic terms, Tesla's machine would link positive charges in the atmosphere with negative charges in the ground and produce an electric current. In January 1943, at the age of 86, Tesla was found dead in a hotel room in New York. The cause of death was determined to be coronary thrombosis. Shortly after, the FBI seized Tesla's belongings, including his research on free energy and other notable projects such as the death ray. In 2016, the FBI declassified over 200 documents they had on Tesla. They've since released more, with the most recent release being in 2018, but some people believe that there are still many files on Tesla that have yet to be made public. Whether these files are lost or intentionally hidden is anyone's guess. Some people believe that Tesla was murdered to prevent his inventions being released to the public. Now, it's obvious why the FBI wouldn't want research on a death ray being made public and getting into the wrong hands, but some people also believe that they suppressed his research on free energy. Once that technology is out there, there's a lot less profit to be made in fossil fuels. Now, obviously oil has other uses, but if no one ever had to pay for energy again, it's a lot less profitable. Theoretically, Tesla's method is possible, but most experts agree that the amount of energy generated by this machine would be relatively insignificant, and there's no way that this method could produce enough energy to supply the whole world with free, unlimited energy. But I guess they would say that, right? But Tesla was an elderly man when he died. He was also known to be very reluctant to visit doctors. He was hit by a car a few years before he died that caused him quite serious injuries, but he refused any medical care. He also claimed to have invented this machine over 10 years before he died. If anyone were to kill him to suppress this invention, you'd think they would have done it quite a few years sooner. Tesla made some significant contributions to technology, but he also made some pretty wild claims, such as that he'd received radio transmissions from Mars that made people question his credibility and his sanity, to be honest. At one point, Tesla actually received funding to build a tower which would supposedly produce free energy, but the plan failed and the tower didn't work. Tesla claimed that he could find a way to make it work if he was given more funding, but at this point he'd kind of blown his chance and no one wanted to invest any more money in it. He wasn't the only inventor to claim that he'd found a way to produce free energy though. Eugene Malov, founder of the non-profit organisation New Energy Foundation, was a proponent of cold fusion, a hypothesised type of nuclear reaction that would occur at or near room temperature and could potentially provide much cheaper energy. Malov wrote a book detailing a small-scale experiment by Stanley Pons and Martin Fleischmann, which supposedly proved cold fusion could work. The book claimed that the results were suppressed by mainstream physicists who ridiculed the experiment to protect their own research and funding. In 2004, Malov was murdered while cleaning out his old home, which had been rented out. It was officially believed that it was a robbery gone wrong, but some people believe he was killed because he was a supporter of cold fusion. There are still small groups of physicists researching cold fusion today, but it's generally seen as fringe science, with so-called mainstream scientists being unable to replicate Pons and Fleischmann's results. There are plenty of other scientists and inventors that claim to have found ways to produce free energy, with some of those being harassed and even killed under mysterious circumstances. Most people would chalk up their deaths to coincidences, as the methods have generally been debunked by mainstream science, so why would they be murdered for inventions that don't even work? But if you buy into this theory, it makes sense that scientists might have been paid off to say that these things don't work when they actually do. Some scientists themselves might even have a horse in the race if they see other research that contradicts their findings and threatens their funding. Critics of this theory might point out that the government, as well as some energy companies, have already funded research into renewable energy, which is true, but as of now, if it's still unaffordable for most people, it's not a huge threat to the business as a whole. At this point, with so many people starting to care about the environment, I think there'd be an outrage if the government and energy companies didn't try and fund this kind of research. Here in the UK, it was only decided a couple of years ago that energy companies had to pay consumers who had solar panels for the excess energy that they generated. Before that, it really only benefited the energy companies if their consumers had solar panels, but they could just take that energy for free. Personally, I'm really not sure about this one. I absolutely see a motive for energy companies to suppress free energy, but the question is, do we have that technology or has it ever existed? The thing is with so many conspiracies like this is it all just boils down to who you believe. I mean, I'm not a scientist and I don't have the resources to carry out an experiment to test any of this, so I don't personally know if those inventors were onto anything or not. So as far as the evidence goes, it's really just a theory for now. Anyway, thanks for watching my segment and thanks to Hannah for having me. If you enjoy internet mysteries, true crime and conspiracies, feel free to check out my channel, a link will be in the description. Thanks again and back to Hannah.
So we wouldn't be able to properly get through a conspiracy theory video without talking about aliens. I'm sure a lot of you remember the 1997 hit movie starring Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, two agents of a secret organization called Men in Black, who are tasked with keeping aliens that are living amongst humans on Earth in line, as well as hiding the existence of aliens from the regular humans. Well, that movie was based on a comic book, and the comic book was actually inspired by a real conspiracy theory. This particular conspiracy theory, of course, perpetuated by UFOologists. The theory is basically that the Men in Black really exist, and that basically there's undercover men who are dressed in black or dark suits that will come after anybody who knows too much or who has witnessed evidence of aliens. Some even suggest that they assassinate people who know too much. This actually all started in the 1950s and 60s when UFO believers started to become paranoid that government agents were going to come after them for knowing too much about aliens. In fact, in 1947, two men named Harold Dahl and Fred Chrisman claimed that they were harbor patrolmen who saw disc-like flying objects that then dropped a white metal foreign substance in the Pacific Northwest in Washington state. They reported this to an aviator, Kenneth Arnold, who then, of course, immediately called Air Force intelligence officers. Two of these officers immediately flew up from California to Washington in order to investigate these claims. When they arrived, they were very disappointed to find out that the material was simply aluminum. It was then discovered that the two men weren't even really harbormen and that they even admitted that they had made the whole thing up. However, Harold Dahl, one of these original men, had claimed that he was approached by a man in a dark suit who warned him never to speak about what he saw. And then even more creepy, the two Air Force officers that came up to investigate crashed on the way home and they both died. Some of course speculate that this was not an accident at all and that the two Air Force officers then knew too much. Many believe that Dahl and Chrisman only recanted their story and claimed that it was a hoax just because it was causing so much trouble when they tried to report it. And of course, because of the Men in Black, they had to pretend like it was a hoax and they didn't really see what they saw. In the mid-1950s, a man named Albert K. Bender had a very similar claim that a man in a dark suit came up to him and warned him not to say anything about the alien evidence that he was aware of. UFOologist John Keel claimed almost the exact same thing when he uncovered evidence. So all in all, while I totally believe that there's probably life outside of Earth somewhere in the universe, I'm really skeptical of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens or claim that they know or have seen real alien evidence. I'm also not convinced that if there really was real evidence here on Earth, why the government would be so secretive about it. I've always found that very odd. I don't know why they wouldn't want the regular people to know about aliens when we all know that they probably exist somewhere in the universe. So what interest does the government have in keeping it so hush-hush? So I just don't understand why it would be such a big deal if people found evidence in the first place. So overall, I think this conspiracy theory, highly unlikely. So that's going to be it for today's video. Everyone, please remember to go check out the Internet Investigators channel linked down below in the description and the pinned comment, as well as her video of conspiracy theories for our collaboration. So as always, thank you all so much for watching, especially if you made it till the end, and I will see you all in the next one.